welcome to a really special chopper chat today. We're speaking to some of the amazing women, past and present, involved with the Westpac Auckland Rescue Helicopter. And first up, I have Dr. Alana Harper, who's been involved for how many years?
9 years now. Well, yeah, just over 9 years.
That's amazing. So what exactly does your job involve?
So I'm a doctor. I'm a pre-hospital retrieval medicine doctor, and we work basically in the helicopter as a clinical crew, as part of the clinical crew. So we work along with an intensive care paramedic, a crewman and a pilot, sometimes two pilots. And we are tasked to people when needed as part of the rescue helicopter.
You said pre-hospital retrieval.
Medicine, yeah. So it sort of encompasses all the different mission types that we can be responded to. So pre-hospital is at the side of the road before a person's managed to get to any hospital level care. Retrieval is actually retrieving a person from one facility and taking them to another facility. So say someone was unwell up in Whangarei Hospital, we could retrieve them down to Auckland for specialist care. And we do that for mostly adults, but as our clinical crew, but the organisation also does it for neonatal and paediatric transfers as well, with a specialist neonatal and paediatric team from Auckland Hospital.
Right, because that's such a range, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to be a jack of all trades.
Pretty much, yeah. So I do emergency medicine as my medical specialty, and it is known as a bit of a jack of all trades, master of none. But I love it. It's a great career.
Do you, over your 9 years, have you had a particular rescue that has stood out?
There's quite a lot of jobs that stand out for me. Not only rescues, but even some of the simple ones. I remember I was pregnant with my second boy, and I went to quite a nasty car accident in the south of Auckland, and the woman was also pregnant at the same time, and it sort of hit home just how sort of fragile things can be. She survived, and I met her and her little boy and my little boy at a reunion that we held a few years back. And it was really quite nice from that perspective. So that one stands out for me. But there are other ones that do stand out. That I think every job is unique in its own way, and I try and look after every patient.
Mm. So you've got two boys.
Two boys.
Two boys.
Yeah.
Have you had the boys in the past 9 years?
Yeah. So Finn's 6.5 and Jack's 3.
Right. So what are their thoughts on your job? Because it's kind of as cool as it gets in a lot of ways, isn't it?
I don't know. I just think because I'm their mum, I'm not really that cool. So it's not really that cool at all. But I go into and talk into the Finn school and the daycare and talk about my job and stuff like that, and bring in helmets and survival vests and all the rest of it, and the kids love it. But yeah, I don't think they think it's very cool because it's me, but. Yeah, I think that's just the way your kids are.
So we've got Rachel and Jen here, who were part of the service 40 years ago. I suspect it was slightly different then. But for women who are looking at joining the service, what's your advice?
I would say that there's nothing's limiting you. If you really want to do it, just put your hand up and do it. I mentor quite a few people at work who come through and are now working for the service, and we also I've also set up a network of of women in pre-hospital retrieval medicine. So it started out as just a network of women around Auckland who were working in the aeromedical sphere. So it's not just doctors, but intensive care paramedics and paramedics. It's now become a national network. So we've got intensive care paramedics and paramedics from central region of the North Island and also the South Island. And I think if you want to do it, just speak to someone who does the job, if you can find someone. If not, things like this are fantastic because it puts us out there and said, look, this is a job that anybody can do. And if you're interested, then put your hand up.
Sign here. You set that network up. Does it Is that because they didn't feel like there was quite the right support at the time?
I think so. I think we set it up because it's quite a it can be quite isolating for some of the women who are working on their own in bases, sort of in other parts of the country, who it's just simple things like we discussed winch harnesses. We have quite a different body shape, and having a winch harness that fits properly around your pelvis, that's comfortable for you to sit in on the winch hook or on hoist operations. Having a helmet that fits right. We've got smaller heads, so there's just it can seem like tiny things, but in actual fact, it's quite a big thing. And sometimes it's just having a network of people around you that understand, that can just support you through asking someone a question or pointing in the direction of answers.
Have you noticed in your 9 years more women joining the service?
Definitely. From our perspective, from the doctors, I only have that sort of lens to look through, but I think we are up to about 40%. I think we're at least a third women doctors, and half of our clinical leadership team from the doctors' perspective is women. We've a wee ways to go with attracting more women intensive care paramedics, crewmen, pilots to us, but definitely around the country there are a lot more women taking up those positions, and it's really nice to see.
So Dr. Sue Johnson's with me now, and you, I understand, are a newbie?
I certainly am, yes. I just started in June with the service.
Right, and how's it been?
Well, actually, it's so exciting. Every time I put this on, I feel like I'm going to work, and it's amazing. It's just working with a team of true professionals who make you feel so welcome, but also you get a lot out of it from a learning perspective, and also from what you can hopefully give back as well.
So explain, you are there with the service for a period of time, or as long as as long as it lasts?
So I've taken a position for a year. So we tend to have fellows who are attached just for a year at a time, and we work as a doctor, so with an intensive care paramedic, the crewman and the pilot, and it's really that team of four that's going to patients as we're needed.
Was this something you had always wanted to do, or was this sort of an opportunity that opened up and you thought, gosh, that would be amazing to try that?
Well, actually, I trained over in Scotland, and when I first moved to New Zealand, which was nearly 4 years ago, the team from ARHT had presented what they did in a regional teaching session, and it completely blew me away. And ever since then, I've sort of been progressing through the various areas of medicine that I needed to become more competent in order to be able to do this job. And so it's like a dream come true to be able to actually start working and doing it now.
And what areas of medicine is that? Sort of emergency care, that sort of...
So the idea is that we should be bringing an intensive care level of care to these patients, whether they be at a roadside or at their home or in a more challenging situation. And so I've done stints in the intensive care areas, in PICU, anaesthesia, emergency medicine, and all working towards this goal of being able to work for ARHT, which is great.
Is it what you expected?
Nothing can really prepare you for what each day can bring. So I think having an expectation of what might happen on that day is unrealistic, because from one moment we might be flying to Great Barrier to pick up somebody who has chest pain, and then you return and are immediately sent or dispatched off to a road traffic accident. And so nothing is predictable. But that's part of the aspect of it that makes it so appealing to me, that you just have to be prepared for anything.
On your toes all the time. I mean, obviously the conditions are one of the things that makes this job so incredibly challenging. Were you prepared for those conditions?
I think that the team do a really good job in terms of the orientation that they give us to the service and the ongoing support that we have as well. So although you might feel slightly isolated to be in a situation where you're not in a hospital with the usual team around you, you still feel as though you have the full support at your back and right there, and much more able to do your job as a result of that. The intensive care paramedics that we work with are unbelievable. They've got years of experience between them, and they also do make the role much easier to contend with.
What makes someone good at your job, do you think?
Well, give me a few years and hopefully I'll be able to tell you a little bit more, because it's definitely a big learning curve at the moment. I think the biggest thing is remaining humble and continuing to learn as you go. Medicine certainly keeps us all very much open-minded to what can happen and what does happen. And I think that just taking that open-mindedness and an appreciation that things can and will change constantly is the best way to approach most situations.
Yeah, having an open mindset. We're talking obviously to some women who've been in the service for years and then some people who had just started. Did you feel that there were any barriers being a woman in this role? I'd love for you to say no, but that might not be the case.
I feel as though the team in ARHT have made it as easy as possible for women to at least express interest in joining the service. We're encouraged to put our hand up and say that we are interested and that we would like to have the opportunity to work here. It is a competitive process, but I don't think that being a woman is something that would hold you back in any way from wanting to join or from continuing to work for ARHT in the future.
You look really proud.
I am.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's lovely.
I actually can't believe that they let me work here. No, I love the job. It's an amazing opportunity. I'm learning lots from incredible people, and it's just a fantastic thing to be doing.
So, Dr. Louise Cassidy, all the way from Canada.
Yes.
And you're training here. Why is that?
So training as a fellow with the Auckland Rescue Helicopter Trust is a unique opportunity that I kind of sought out in part of my training. So I'm a senior medical trainee in Canada in emergency medicine, and I had the opportunity to apply and was thankfully accepted to come and do some additional training here in pre-hospital medicine. So that's kind of how I ended up with ARHT.
Great. And could you do something similar in Canada or not?
Yeah, and it kind of depends on the province that you're in Canada. We have such a big country with a variety of different services. There are some opportunities that are similar, but this one is really kind of robust and well-founded. And due to the nature of one of the medical directors, Dr. Chris Denny, who is Canadian, he's built this relationship with Canadian residency trainees in emergency medicine so that we can kind of come over and do some additional training and kind of learn alongside and with the team at ARHT.
So you kind of get the added benefit of being able to see Auckland and from the air.
Yeah.
first time in the country,
Yeah.
and you get to experience it in quite an amazing way.
Yeah, I feel really lucky to be able to do that. This is a job that I've wanted to do for a really long time, and I just feel super lucky to get to do it. And flying in a helicopter above New Zealand is beautiful, and it's been an amazing way to see parts of the country.
Before you came here, had you had experience on rescue helicopters?
We do some training in our residency training with our paramedic service in Canada. I train in Vancouver, British Columbia, and so we've done some rotations there that include some flight time as well, but nothing that's kind of as in-depth or as robust as the training that we get here with the Auckland Rescue Helicopter Trust.
And how have you found it? How have you found the people and the experience?
It's been amazing, honestly. I've felt so welcome just from the beginning with our orientation and working with the crews and the teams. It's been a really amazing experience, and I think every day at the end of a shift I come home and think, well, I'm exhausted, but you just learn so much, and it's been a really, really welcoming, amazing group.
What sorts of things are you learning? What kind of skills do you think, gosh, I'll use that throughout the rest of my career?
Yeah, I think, with a background as a doctor in emergency medicine training, we're used to being in the hospital. So we have the benefit of, blood work and more diagnostics to help us kind of figure out what's going on and guide our treatment. But when you're working in a pre-hospital setting on a helicopter, you don't have a lot of those things. And so it's amazing watching some of the paramedics who've been at this for so long, how they're able to kind of problem solve and work with not a lot of background information. And I think that's a really helpful skill as a provider who usually works in the hospital for us to kind of pick up and learn a lot of tricks and tips. It's been really great and something I think moving in my practice forward, I'll definitely take and use more.
You, I know, have been in Vancouver recently, and I do believe that Vancouver weather is not dissimilar to Auckland's weather, but it can change quite quickly. Have you had that experience at all when you've been in the helicopter?
Yes, for sure. And I think even the best example was my first week here in Auckland. We had our training, and I remember thinking, like, I thought I could handle rain. I thought I could handle the changing weather, but Auckland, it certainly seems to be a little bit faster and change a bit quicker. So yeah, you always need to be prepared. Always got your wool on underneath your reds, and be ready for the changing weather here for sure.
Absolutely. The other thing that you don't have that the other team members possibly have is just that sort of local geographical knowledge. So do you sometimes sort of think, I have no idea where we're going? You just get in and think, I don't know if we're going south, I don't know if we're going north.
Yeah, I definitely try and be really involved with the conversations that occurs with the pilots and the crewmen and the paramedics about where we're going to land. Whenever a job comes in, we hear, where we need to go. And then there's a big discussion, kind of almost like a team huddle before we go to talk about where we're going to land, how we're going to get there safely, how we're going to transport the patient out. So I'm definitely picking up a lot. And I try and pull up maps all the time and try and look where we went and try and learn. And it's a really amazing way to learn about the geography of New Zealand.
Rachel Johnstone's here with me now, and you were with the service for 15 years, is that right?
Give or take.
So tell me when you started.
In the summer of 78-79, I joined the same time as Simon Barton, who later came on to be the first full-time crew chief.
Right. And where were you based then? Tell me about that.
I was a lifeguard at Port Waikato at Sunset Beach, and the rescue helicopter in those days was a surf life-saving helicopter that started in 1970. So most of the lifeguards up and down the west coast beaches had opportunities to do a jump out of a helicopter, and I had one out of the Hiller, the old one, probably 1974, 75, about that period. And then the opportunity, as I grew with life-saving and became a senior lifeguard, the opportunity came to join as a probationary helicopter lifeguard.
Did you say, sorry, just to go back, did you say to have a jump out of a helicopter?
Surf jumps. We used to do surf jumps.
So that was literally you would jump out of the helicopter?
Yep, into the surf.
Wow.
Swim back into shore.
Wow. That must have been incredibly exciting in those days.
Oh, it was, because there weren't a lot of helicopters around. They were doing deer recovery, or they had been fighting over in the wars in Vietnam and things. So it was very different.
And it was lifeguards got to show interest. I suspect in those days it was a largely male crew, was it?
Pretty much. They had the two jet boats. They had the Hamilton jet boats were doing surf rescue. There were no inflatable inshore rescue boats in those days. And then there was a group of chaps, Malcolm Beattie, Roger Curtis, Russell Williams, that thought about having a rescue helicopter. I bought this idea. It was the first helicopter in New Zealand, or in Australasia actually, as a rescue helicopter, and thought it would be unique and ideal for the West Coast surf rescues, getting out to people that were getting carried out in rips. In those days, it was still line and reel, and rescue tubes were fairly new. So they bought in this helicopter, and it really revolutionised surf rescue.
It did. You said that a lot of your jobs were the surf, the odd sort of tramper retrieval or something like that. Yeah. Do you have any stories, any missions that stand out?
I've had quite an extensive time with not only just surf and then later on being crew on the Westpac, and then another 10 years in Queenstown running an air rescue service down there. So I've had a lot of missions over my time. But thinking about that, one of my very early jobs for the original rescue helicopter was a missing swimmer, and we were patrolling around Piha looking for this youth and doing grid searching. And that was one area that I thought I was quite good at, was spotting unusual things where you're looking at a pattern and you see something that's not right. And there was a head sinking below the water. And so we did a surf jump, retrieved that young man, brought him into shore, and had to do a resuscitation, and he survived, flew him to Auckland. And that would have been, I was probably 20 years old, and really, we didn't know a lot in those days. So it's gone a long way from there.
I was going to say, you must, sitting here and listening to current crew, you must think it feels like a different world.
It's amazing, actually. It's really good.
Tell me what it was like in the 70s being a woman working on the helicopter.
So late 70s when I joined, 78, 79, very male dominated. Even in surf lifesaving, Piha didn't even have female lifeguards. Half of Australia didn't have female lifeguards. So yeah, we had a lot of headbutting and stuff. Our training nights at down in the old surf house in Fanshawe Street. No male, only male toilets and male shower. Nothing for us girls. For the odd girl that was there, we were expected to either go first or go last, or have the men burst in. Different times.
Very, very different times. Do you feel, when you look at all the women in this room who are obviously not having to deal with those things that you had to deal with, how do you feel when you hear that?
Oh, I think it's great. I'm sure there's still challenges out there. Females in predominantly male work areas, but they've just been able to go a lot further. And I think women have wanted to drive a lot further with their careers and are very good at it. And I do feel that we need women in air rescue throughout the world.
When you look back in your sort of time working on the rescue helicopters, what's the kind of overall feeling, I guess, you have? Is it one of camaraderie, or that you were providing a service? I guess, do you sort of have an overarching feeling, I guess?
I'm just super proud I was part of what I was, and I guess I was a bit of a trailblazer, but I never really... My job was just to try and perform as good as the guys, or perform 110% better than the guys. And I just had a passion about what I was doing. I just loved doing it.
Well, Jenny Wetzel's here with me now, who also happens to be my stepmother. So thank you, Jen. First question, because you're in the rag trade now. Are you jealous you didn't get the suits that these girls have, these women have?
Yeah, they're looking really sharp, very professional.
Okay, so take me back, what did you say, 40 years to North Piha?
Yeah, again, very much like Rachel, was a lifeguard, been a lifeguard since I was 14, and I did a 10-year in surf lifesaving, and got to about 20. Rachel and I were already doing beach inspections, so I actually hunted through a whole lot of photos to find the photograph that I knew I had, which I took a photograph of because I couldn't take it out of the picture book. And so just having done 6 years as a competitive lifeguard, felt like then doing beach inspections, and the group that I was involved with sort of all got involved in the helicopter lifeguard service, and I thought, I can be part of this, I want to be part of this. So there'd been a couple of girls and we'd all talked about it, Vicky Edwards, and of course I knew Rachel. So the girls, as Rachel said, there were not as many women in surf as men, and I remember in 1980 they selected a group of 6 women to tour the Central Coast in Australia, and I was privileged to be one of those 6 women. They didn't have women lifeguards in Australia, so the Auckland team took 6 women to show the Australians that women could actually be lifeguards. So we did a demonstration on the beaches right up through Gosford and everywhere to show them that we could do 6-man R&R, 4-man beach sprinting, swimming, and that in those days we were nearly, I think we were just under, we were a good 30 to 40% of the lifeguards in New Zealand. Women, yeah.
Oh. So we've always been, so at least in that sense, kind of ahead of our times, maybe?
Yeah, well, ahead of, I think worldwide, we were a lot of women in surf lifesaving.
Rachel was saying, you know, she felt the need to be sort of 110% to prove that she could easily keep up with the boys. I know without a shadow of a doubt that would have been you, Jen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in my time, I was a number 2. We had number 1 guard and number 2 guard, and we were trained that number 2 guard jumped the chopper first. So when there was ever an incident, number 2 guard jumped out of the chopper. So you just opened the door and jumped. So number 2 guard jumped first, and then number 1 guard jumped if it was needed. So, and you just jumped into the water.
So
and we had we didn't have a winch that you sit in. It was just they just dropped the line, and we wore wetsuits. So we jumped in the chopper in a wetsuit. We had a belt with the carabiners, and we just clipped ourselves in, clipped our patients in a tube, gave the all clear signal to the pilot, and then he'd just fly, and then he'd lift us above the waterline. We'd check all our clips, make sure we're all clipped in, and then give him the signal, and he'd just fly us out.
Wow.
So we didn't have what it is today, which is, I've listened to these ladies today, and I'm just so proud of women. I just feel this whole thing has come so far, and I'm excited just to be sitting in this room today with these wonderful women. I just think it's just, I've been getting...
I know, it's heartwarming,
yeah,
isn't it?
It's very.
Yeah. Oh, especially
very.
when you were there at the very, well, not the very beginning, but towards the beginning.
Yeah, and I think the helicopter service has definitely taken the right steps over this whole period of time and put in the medical service to provide the attention and care and empathy with women that are bringing to the service, and the compassion and all those things. I think it's fantastic to see women taking their place in that emergency situation.
Dr. Steph MacKay is with me now. Thank you for being here. Now, you've been with the service nearly 3 years, is that right?
Just come out for 2. Yeah.
Oh, just come out for 2 years. Fantastic. So why did you choose to join?
I'd wanted this job for the last decade. So as a medical student, I'd had some experience of pre-hospital care with my local ambulance service in Scotland and with London's Air Ambulance as well. In 2015, as a junior doctor in Scotland, I got a travelling fellowship in memoriam of Robin Mitchell himself, and went to Iceland and worked for a month in emergency and pre-hospital care. So when I moved to Auckland, I really had my heart set on this job and was lucky to be a fellow from late 2018 to late 2019.
I just have to ask, Iceland, London, Scotland and Auckland.
Yeah.
How do those services differ and how are they alike?
I guess they're all really good at functioning in the rain in terrible weather. But they're a real diverse mix. Auckland has a probably unique in the world blend of serving a relatively big city but with lots of quite gnarly rescue work and supporting some quite remote clinicians in rural populations. The Icelandic rescue helicopter covers up to 250 nautical miles offshore and an enormous empty country flying over volcanoes and snow. The Scottish ambulance service covers the central belt of Scotland, which is densely populated, but this wild offshore assortment of islands and remote populations. And London is a world-leading group of clinicians, really at the cutting edge of pre-hospital care in one of the world's biggest cities. So, yeah.
It sounds like you would have no skills that you would need to pick up here in Auckland, but are you?
Oh, so many every day. And I think one of the enormous privileges is how much I learn every day. I think for me, the biggest bit of learning with the Rescue Helicopter Trust has been around teamwork and leadership. It's really rare that we're the only crew at a scene, whether that's in a patient's home, at the roadside, at another healthcare facility. And to really do right by our patients, you have to get the best out of everyone there. And that might be volunteer firefighters or ambulance officers. It might be other doctors, nurses, road paramedicine staff. It might be the patient's family. And every day you learn a little bit more about how to support those people to do right for the person you're caring for.
What would you say is the most challenging aspect of your job?
I think there's 2 facets to it. The medical stuff has to be really, really top of your game. We're looking after some really unwell, very seriously injured people in quite a resource-limited setting. So you have to be really sharp with that. The big surprise to me when I started was the physicality of the job, and that takes quite a bit of training for me. I'm not naturally fit. I have to work hard to be fit and strong enough to survive a shift in quite challenging conditions sometimes.
That's interesting. That's really, I mean, we've got, a range of women here and and some women are not, big. So does that make it a slightly tougher job for those women?
Certainly, if you are small, it's harder work to lift a 150 kg patient into the back of an aircraft. Yeah.
Just simple physics, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Tell me, because we're here obviously celebrating women in this job, have you ever felt in your experience, I guess, across the board in different countries that you've ever been disadvantaged because you're a woman?
Oh, I think there are always barriers to being a little bit different, and whether that is the nature of your ethnicity or racial background or your gender or other things that make you stand out can be a real challenge. I've been made incredibly welcome in this job and in a lot of other places. but I'm really mindful that I am very much standing on the shoulders of giants, and there are some awesome wahine who have really blazed the trail ahead of me, and I'm super grateful for that.
Happy 50th anniversary, Auckland Westpac Rescue Helicopter.